Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Those are the words of John F. Kennedy at his inaugural speech, elected in 1961. Today I'll be talking about John F. Kennedy. I believe he was one of the better presidents we've had, even though it was for a short 2-year period before he was assassinated. So let's start off. John F. Kennedy was the 35th President of the United States. He was born in Massachusetts and came from a political family. He was elected in 1961, according to Biography.com, was the second youngest president behind Theodore Roosevelt. He faced foreign crisis and handled them well. The Bay of Pigs invasion he was kind of thrown into, Cuba Missile Crisis, and Berlin were the main ones that I'll talk about today. All of this in 2 years before being assassinated on November 22nd of 1963. So let's begin with some background on John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, before becoming president, according to whitehouse.gov, John F. Kennedy was Roman Catholic from Massachusetts, and he was born in 1917. He graduated Harvard in 1940 and joined the Navy during World War II. In 1943, his PT boat was hit by a Japanese destroyer. It was actually rammed by the destroyer, and it gave John F. Kennedy a huge back problem. He was injured along with some other Americans off the ship, but they made it to safety. Now, after talking about his World War II history and battle, which many believe that he used just for political reasoning. So after the war, John F. Kennedy followed his grandfather and his father's footsteps into politics. According to Biography.com, in '52, JFK ran for Senate and won by having a disciplined and organized campaign, ran by his brother Robert. After winning the election in '52, JFK married Jackie O, as many called her. She would become just as famous as him. Now, according to Biography.com, JFK is the only president who won a Pulitzer Prize. He won it by writing a book about senates who backed choices that many didn't understand why they would back. JFK and Jackie, they had 3 children, Caroline, John Jr., and Patrick. A lot of people know about the Kennedys. Kennedys are the American royal family. So John F. Kennedy was senator for 8 years, and it wasn't challenging enough for him, so he decided to run for presidency. In 1956, Kennedy was actually passed over as a vice president candidate. So in 1960, he decided he was going to run for president in '61. He chose Lyndon B. Johnson as his running mate, beat Nixon barely for presidency, and it was largely due to the presidential debate being put on TV for the first time ever. Many believe JFK to be a very handsome man, and Nixon, well, not so much. And his presence on TV left JFK the overall winner of the debate, which then left America, obviously, turn some votes in his favor. Alright. Now let's talk about JFK's short but successful presidency. According to Biography.com, JFK was the first Catholic president, second youngest, and first born in the 20th century. Kennedy wanted America to be more active and famously said in his inaugural speech, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." According to whitehouse.gov, JFK was dedicated to human rights, which actually showed at the end before he was assassinated. He wanted to end segregation. He believed it was more of a moral issue than it was a lawful issue, considering our country was founded by immigrants. With the aid of the Peace Corps, he took American idealism to aid developing nations, also known as third world nations. Kennedy banned Cuban exiles and helped try to overthrow Castro and the Cuban government, but failed horribly. The Berlin Wall was built by the Russians. After being built, Kennedy reinforced the power of garrison soldiers over there in Berlin due to the major pressure the city was feeling. All that tension including the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, led to Russia putting nukes in Cuba, which I'm sure we all have heard about the Cuban Missile Crisis. It lasted 13 days when an air reconnaissance in October 1962 discovered nuclear weapons in Cuba. After the 13 days were up, JFK and his administration had actually talked Russia into taking their nukes out of the country, and Russia stood down. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, JFK focused on civil rights and equality for all. JFK was assassinated November 22nd of 1963 by Lee Harvey Oswald in Dallas, Texas. According to biography.com, JFK was at a campaign appearance with Governor Connally of Texas. JFK and Jackie, they were all in a car, convertible style, driving through Dallas, and he was shot twice from the Texas School Book Depository by a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. The last shot hit JFK in the head. The Zapruder film caught it, and the whole world watched it, eventually. Now, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories. In fact, I've done a lot of research on this throughout my prior college and high school, and I truly believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was just a man by himself who was looking for some sort of fame, kind of demented fella who shot JFK. A lot of people disagree. They think there's some conspiracy to it because the Kennedys, well, they're a pretty hated family at some time. Alright. The conspiracy also didn't help that Jack Ruby, who was a nightclub owner, assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald, which you'll see in my visual aids that I'm going to attach to my video, that you'll get to see the picture of Jack Ruby shooting Lee Harvey Oswald because it was caught on live television. Alright, John F. Kennedy, his family, and his life is fascinating. Jackie is as famous as him. John Jr. just as famous. He died in a plane crash later in his life. The United States people, they'll always talk about them. The Kennedys were considered our royal family. Now just think, John F. Kennedy only served for 2 years before he was assassinated, and was that loved of a man. Alright, so in conclusion, I've told you about just the tip of the iceberg of JFK, what he stood for, in the assassination that stood place in Dallas, Texas. John F. Kennedy was an amazing public figure who also had his flaws, and many people know about these flaws. All you have to do is some research. He loved women. His family was as famous as he is, whose life ended too short. Imagine what he could have done in more than 2 years for this country. You guys have a great class. I'm out.